Good evening po sa inyong lahat. Okay. Mr. Dehan always knew that obedience has consequences, but it came home to him forcibly in basic training during World War II. He had traveled beyond the distance allowed on his weekend pass to be with his wife and returned to camp late because the train had broken down. He paid for his rule breaking, 20 hours of extra duty washing pots and pans. King Saul also learned the high cost of disobedience. He faced the prospect of fighting a huge, well-equipped Palestine army with a small band of frightened and untrained followers. While waiting for Samuel to come and offer a sacrifice before going to battle, Saul became impatient and offered the sacrifice himself, even though he knew that God given that right only to the priest. It was a costly mistake. Saul had begun his reign with humility and compassion, and he gave God the credit in 1 Samuel 11. And the prophet Samuel told him that God would have kept the kingship in his family if he had obeyed God's command in chapter 13 of verse 13 to 14. But that one act of disobedience changed the course of his life. From that point on, it was a sad downhill journey. Never forget that disobedience has consequences, and some of them may be very costly. Our text for tonight is on the 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22. Samuel replied, "Does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the voice of the Lord? To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams." Ang title po ng ating mensahe, Obedience is better than sacrifice. What did Saul disobey? In 1 Samuel 15, verse 2 and 3, ito po ang command ng Diyos. Ito po yung pinapagawa ng Diyos sa kanya. "This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Now go attack the Amalekites, totally destroy everything that belonged to them. Do not spare them, put to death men and women, children, infant, cattle, sheep, camels, and donkey." Why did God command such utter destruction to the Amalekites? The Amalekites were a band of guerrilla terrorists. They lived by attacking other nations and carrying off their wealth and their families. The Amalekites were the first to attack the Israelites as they entered the Promised Land, and they continued to raid Israelites' camp at every opportunity. God knew that Israelite could never live peacefully in the Promised Land as long as the Amalekites existed. He also knew that their corrupt, idolatrous religious practice threatened Israel's relationship with him. The only way to protect the Israelites' bodies and soul was to utterly destroy the people of the warlike nation and all their possession, including their idols. Why did God command even innocent children and animals to be killed in verse 3? Ang mga bata, inosente, wala naman silang kamuwang-muwang. Bakit po pati yung mga bata at yung mga animals ay i-destroy? Sapagkat under God's ban po yung Amalekites, no? Pag sinabi po ng God's ban, ibig sabihin destroy completely. The reason behind is that ang purpose po ng God's ban, this was set up in order to prevent idolatry from taking hold in Israel because many of the valuables, including the animals, would become an idol, no? Alam ho ng Diyos na if mag-set aside po siya, kunyari sabihin niya, wag niyo isama yung mga bata at mga animals sa pag-raid. Alam ho ng Diyos that sa situation na to, it would create some, may konting kaguluhan yung kung mag-spare ka ng mga tao. At dito sa kaguluhan na to, at will give some Amalekites the opportunity to escape. Yun po ang iniiwasan ng Diyos. Kaya po ang utos niya ay lahat po ay i-destroy, lahat po iwa-wise out. Yun po ang dahilan kung bakit kapati po yung mga bata at mga animals ay i-destroy. In verse 6, makita ho natin, while Saul going to attack the Amalekites, in-spare niya po yung mga Canaanites. Yung mga Canaanites po ay, they were the one who show kindness to the Israelites when they entered the promised land. At dito makikita po natin yung sinasabi ng Book of Numbers 24:9, that may those who bless you be blessed, and those who curse you be cursed. No? Dito nakita po natin, kaya po in-spare ni Saul yung mga Canaanites because naging blessing po sila sa mga Israelites when they entered the promised land. And the Lord blessed them by sparing them dito sa pagpatay sa mga Amalekites. And so, what did Saul disobey? Makikita po natin kung ano ginawa ni Saul sa verse 9. Ito po yung ginawa ni Saul sa verse 9. But Saul and the army spared Agag. Si Agag po yun ang hari ng Amalekites. In-spare niya po yun. And the best of the sheep and cattle, the fat calves, the lambs, everything that was good, these were unwilling to destroy. But everything that was despised and weak, they totally destroyed. What led Saul to disobey God? Bakit di niya dinestroy lahat? Ano ang nag-lead sa kanya? Letter A, personal interest. Bakit personal interest? In verse 9, he spared Agag because he was a king like himself and perhaps in hope to get a great ransom for him. No, may personal interest po siya. In verse 19, he spared the best of the cattle and destroy only the refuse. Siguro pagdating ho nila dun sa Amalekites, na manghapo sila dun sa quality ng mga animals, no? At yun po ang parang nagbigay sa kanya ng sort of material gain. Natuksuho sila dun sa mga quality ng mga animals na sayang po sila na i-destroy po nila yun. So dito makikita po natin, see what evil, the love of money is the root of disobedience. For Saul and the people designed their own profit in sparing the cattle in verse 19. And letter B, personal glory and pride that lead him to disobey. In verse 12, ano ho sinabi sa verse 12? Early in the morning, Samuel got up and went to meet Saul. But he was told, Saul gone to Carmel. There he has set up a monument in his honor and has turned and gone on down to Gilgal. In verse 12, Saul built a monument in honor of himself. What a contrast to Moses and Joshua, who gave all the credit to God. Dito makikita ho natin, when we cease to follow the Lord wholeheartedly, we follow our prideful heart to our own destruction. And in verse 13, anong nangyari sa verse 13? When Samuel reached him, Saul said, The Lord bless you. I have carried out the Lord's instruction. In verse 13, makikita po natin, Saul make his boast to Samuel of his disobedience, then lied to Samuel about the result of the battle. Nagsinungaling siya. Sabi niya, nagawa niya. But actually, may tinirahaw siya. Dito makikita ho natin yung loss of credibility ni Saul kay Samuel. Nawala yung tiwala at respeto ni Samuel kay Saul sapagkat siya ay nagsinungaling. When on verse 15, makikita ho natin, ano ang sabi ni Saul? Saul answered, The soldier brought them from the Amalekites. They spared the best of the sheep and cattle to sacrifice to the Lord your God, but we totally destroyed the rest. Dito sa verse 15, Saul insists upon his own justification against this charge. Yung charge na nagsinungaling siya, na hindi niya ginawa yung dapat niyang gawin. Sabi niya, it is not his fault, for the people spared them. No? Ayaw niyang tanggapin na kasalanan ho niya. Sinisis niya yung mga tao kasi gusto nilang gawin yun eh. Kaya pinabayaan niya. No? Note that those that are willing to justify themselves are commonly very forward to condemn others and lay the blame upon any rather than take it to themselves. No? And in verse 21, ano ho sa verse 21? The soldier took sheep and cattle and the plunders, the best of what was devoted to God, in order to sacrifice them to the Lord your God at Gilgal. Nag-justify po si Saul sa 21. It was with good intention. Sabi niya, itong mga tupa to, itong mga fat rams, ito po hindi namin di-destroy kasi i-offer namin to dun sa altar sa Gilgal. Ginastify niya yung ginawa nilang hindi pagsunod sa Diyos. No? The soldiers took them. No? So dito, makikita ho natin bakit personal glory ang makikita po natin sa action ni Saul dito. Sapagkat ang utos ng Diyos ay litisin lahat ng Amalekites dun po mismo sa killing field, dun po sa site ng Amalekites. If Saul had obeyed the Lord and killed everything at the killing field, he had give the offering to God in that moment in time. Yung sinasabi niya pong offering na ibibigay niya sa Gilgal, pwede niya po gawin dun sa killing field kung sumunod lang po siya sa Diyos. Kung sinunod niya po yung utos ng Diyos na patayin lahat dun sa killing field, he would have gave God the glory and the offering that he's talking about na ibibigay niya po dun sa Gilgal. Bakit po ayaw niyang gawin dun sa killing field? Bakit po niya gustong dalhin pa dun sa Gilgal at i-offer sa Diyos sapagkat sa personal glory? Gusto niya nagpo-glorify siya. Gusto niya na-honor siya at gusto niya ipakita na magaling siya. Yung pride. No? Gusto niya magpakita. Yun po ang personality niya that leads him to disobey God. Tayo rin po, ganun din ho minsan, nakakakuha rin tayo ng kasalanan and we justify yung mga wrongdoing natin. No? So in letter C, being a man-pleaser, in verse 24, ano po ang nasabi niya sa verse 24? In verse 24, dito po natin makikita ang sabi ni Saul, I have sinned. Finally, tinanggap niya, inamin niya na siya ay nagkasala. I violated the Lord's command and your instruction. I was afraid of the people, and so I gave in to them. I was afraid of the people. Ano kinatakutan ni Saul sa tao? Bakit siya nag-afraid? Because being a man-pleaser is afraid to stand for the truth, for the righteousness, when it is unpopular. Gusto niya kasi popular siya. Gusto niya sundin yung kagustuhan ng tao. Kaya yun ang sinunod niya. Saul was more concerned about what others would think of him that he was about the status of his relationship with God. No? So, what led him to disobey? Personal interest, personal glory, and pride, and being a man-pleaser. Kung i-sum up po natin to, isa lang po ang ibig sabihin po, bakit di siya nag-disobey? Bakit ho siya nag-disobey sa Diyos? Because Saul loved himself more than he loved God. So yun po ang cause ng kanyang disobedience. And because of his disobedience, what was the consequences of Saul disobedience? Letter A, makita ho natin sa verse 23. Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, ang sabi ni Samuel sa kanya, the Lord has rejected you as king. And in verse 28, loss of blessing po kay Saul. Sa verse 28, inulit po yung ni Samuel sa kanya, the Lord has turned the kingdom of Israel from you today and has given it to one of your neighbor, to one better than you. No? Siguro ito'y masakit na tanggapin ni Saul na sabihan siya na hindi ka na hari at kami po ay nakahanap ng someone na mas mabuti po sa kanya. Someone better than you. So letter B, loss of trust, respect, and credibility is one of the consequences na na-experience po ni Saul sa kanyang pag-disobey. Makikita po natin ito sa verse 32 and 33. Ano po nangyari sa verse 32? Then Samuel said, bring me Agag, king of Amalekites. Agag came to him confidently, thinking, surely the bitterness of death is past. But Samuel said, as your sword has made woman childless, so will your mother be childless among women. And Samuel put Agag to death before the Lord at Gilgal. Dito nakikita po natin na si Samuel na po mismo ang pumatay kay King Agag because he don't trust King Saul anymore, because he don't respect the kingship of Saul anymore. And King Saul is not credible enough to be trusted to deliver what the Lord want him to do. So siya na po, nakikita po natin dito, nag-take over na po si Samuel dun sa dapat gawin ni King Saul. At siya na po mismo ang pumatay kay King Agag. Sa buhay po natin, marami pong consequences pag di po tayo nag-o-obey. No? Pwede pong loss of blessing. Ang sample po ng loss of blessing sa buhay po natin, pwede po tayo financially, hindi po tayo maging successful sa ating negosyo. Pwede kung hindi tayo obedient sa ating parents, pwede po tayong hindi makatapos sa ating pag-aaral kung hindi tayo marunong sumunod. Pwede po tayong hindi bigyan ng mana, hindi tayo pagtiwalaan ng ating negosyo o family business kung disobedient po tayo. At marami pong, and the only way na ma-experience po natin sa disobedience, yung mawala po yung presensya ng Diyos sa buhay po natin. Yun po ang ma-experience ni Saul sa susunod na mga nang pangyayari sa kanyang buhay. So, balik ho tayo sa verse 22, ang ating text verse. When Samuel told Saul that to obey is better than sacrifice, was Samuel saying that sacrifice is unimportant? No? Ang sagot po doon is no. Samuel was urging Saul to look at his reason for making the sacrifice rather than the sacrifice itself. Ang Diyos po tumitingin sa kung ano po yung motive natin sa ating pag-offer sa Kanya. Hindi po dun sa offering na binibigay po sa atin. Yun po ang mensaheng pinapahatid ni Samuel kay Saul. No? A sacrifice was a ritual transaction between a person and God that physically demonstrate a relationship between them. But if the person's heart was not truly repentant, or if he did not truly love God, the sacrifice was a hollow ritual. Religious ceremonies or ritual are empty unless they are performed with an attitude of love and obedience. Being religious, coming to church, serving on a committee, giving to charity is not enough if we do not act out of devotion and obedience to God. So before we finish our message, I would like to share what Oswald Chamber wrote. The Lord does not give me rules, but He makes His standard very clear. If my relationship to Him is that of love, I will do what He says. If I hesitate, it is because I love someone I have placed in competition with Him, namely myself. When we are obedient, we show God that we love Him and have more faith in Him than we do in ourselves. Arthur W. Pink said that love is a principle of action and it expresses itself by deeds which please the object loved. To obey God means to relinquish what we want and to choose to do what He asks. So, ang challenge po sa atin sa gabing ito is the challenge that Jesus issued in John 14:15. If you love me, you will obey what I command. Thank you and a blessed good evening.
Tayo po mga kapatid ay tumayo at tayo po'y umawit para sa response song ng mensahe ngayong gabi.
Down before you, oh Lord, all my regrets, all my acclaim, the joy and the pain, I'm making them yours. Lord, I offer my life to you, everything I've been through. Use it for your